Hey folks, Bob Rapp here. It's Thursday night. It's been a wonderful day, and I've been working with some colleagues thinking about the general topic of how we do agenic conversations. So, if you're not talking about agents, you're probably not talking about generative AI today. It's the biggest buzzword, it's kind of misunderstood. But as I take you through the topic, let's talk about kind of the process that I go through. I typically am starting with ChatGPT 4.0. Sometimes I use the 4.5 model. And basically, what I'm talking about is what is the prepend and postpend to doing great coding, right? So if you look at this prompt, this kind of starts it. And vibe coding is another way of saying I don't really have a plan, maybe. I'm just kind of hanging out with my friends. And by the way, it's super fun. I just got back from a vibe coding session. I really like it. But how do we make it better and more like the engineering that we know? So I spent some time thinking about mnemonics, and careful coding is a mnemonic that seemed like a pretty good one, which says complete a plan, assume nothing, refactor, explain, fail on purpose, use roles and constraints, log everything, chain tasks with care, own the output, my favorite one, design for humans, probably Ian's favorite one, iterate interactively, name everything well, guardrails win, right? So what I did is took that notion from ChatGPT and I put it into one of my favorite tools, which is Replit. And I won't take you through the whole process. There's a 47-page document that I built to think about this. But for the teams I'm working with, this is a prototype of what it might look. I even did the flashing letters here. And from an automotive OEM point of view, there's no internal company data here, but this is just thinking about how we might build a prompt, how we might think about these concepts, how we might train each other better, and then maybe build a prompt library. Kind of, and by the way, none of these concepts particularly too. There's a group of folks I've been working with on this. How can I test my code? By the way, I might want to use different models here. That's a pretty common thing. Look at my performance analytics. This is all sample data. But I also wanted to take you through a concept which is becoming important called agents. And agenic architecture says I can select different pieces of code to independently go work against some problems that they are authorized to do. If you don't authorize them, by the way, think of it as a virus with a credit card. But I named each of the principles, the 13 principles for careful coding, got an agent. So they're named after famous women scientists. So we have Marie Curie, who's content analyst, Rachel Carson. If we go through each of these agents, each of them has a role. Each of them has some boundaries on what they can do. Each of them has some permissions, and each of them has a way to see what they're doing all of the time. And I'm going to go view this live demo. We're going to start this demo, and we see that agents are handing off work to each other. Now, this is a demo. This is a prototype that I've just built with some friends over the last couple of days, but it shows you how the agents are going to interact with each other. And remember that everything we've known forever is still true. We still have to have rules. We have to have permissions. We have to decide what you can do, what you can't do. Great data, still the problem, garbage in, garbage out. But this shows how we might think about the scenarios and how we would validate them and what the interactions might be. And so I'm a big fan of prototyping before we actually go build the thing. And then if we go back to our methodology, I can also say, maybe I want to have a interactive builder, so I might say, give me traditional ML examples, things that we, by the way, know a lot about. Maybe I want to do a Gen AI example. And so I built a prompt builder that takes us through each of the steps. If you go down here to the bottom, and this is going from step CAREFULCOD. You get it? Um, by the way, I've already pre-populated this with some sample data, so I can say, export this prompt. And here's the prompt that I created ahead of time because I'm a big fan. And this would be to do a safety experiment because what I'm trying to do is to help my colleagues build better data science and better experiments. And by the way, they are still the people responsible for the wonderfulness of it. But I'm going to go ahead and go maybe into um, create a new chat. By the way, I'm going to use 4.5 for this chat model because I really like 4.5. And I'm going to say build this code as a PyTorch note notebook for data bricks. And by the way, this is sample, so it won't make a lot of sense. But let me go back to that example that we had here. Oops. Oh, I thought I just had it. And I'm going to export the prompts, open that, and then I'm going to do Command A, Command C. We'll try it one more time. And then what I'm doing is I'm saying, give me an experiment that I can get the code for. I still am the human that has to curate this. I'm still the person responsible. I need to do the great data science, but this is going to get me to a first draft. We call this sort of, imagine if you had an enthusiastic intern that could get something written. By the way, I love interns, but they don't always know exactly what we need. But if you see how much faster we're able to do the work, then by the way, I can take this code and I can put it in my GitHub repository personally, and I can toss it to a friend who is a data scientist. You'll meet Masa later, or maybe Eric, who's writing some code and he's using some internal tools. Maybe we can take this structure and then put it with some internal tools like GoFile for GitHub, or maybe we can use the data science wizards for Databricks. And then finally, I wanted to talk just a moment about a couple things. One is if you haven't spent time with Devin, I said to Devin, based on the agents that I am using for my front end, actually build agents, an agenic architecture here. By the way, we'll cover that in the next session. And then finally, I put in Gamma. Hey, Gamma, take my technical spec, my 46-page spec, and then create a presentation of what we're doing, right? So better answers each time, great science, great data. Here's the mnemonic, so we explain what that means. Automotive AI development. By the way, this is really just AI development, but I use the word automotive because it seems good. And then how do we think about the builder? How do we think about the domain that we're in? Because remember, great data, great insight, deeper rags, deeper domains. Here's our dashboard. Here's our getting started guide. By the way, I think we're going to spend a lot of time together as we learn about this together, and I'm excited about helping the whole community become supercharged. Thank you very much. Bob Rapp, have a good day.